Hello, welcome to Cool Schools. I'm Bob Driscoll. This is the show where we talk about anything happening in schools in central New York. Tonight, we're continuing our discussion on AI in the classroom. We are joined by Matthew Flutter-Johann from Moyne College. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. At Moyne, I am the Writing Center Director, and I also direct the Bosch Center for Teaching and Learning, which is their professional development for faculty and instructors sector. My background is in literature and then communications and then composition and rhetoric, so writing and argumentation.
Now, we previously, on this topic, spoke with Jennifer Steele, who is a professor at American University, and she was kind of talking about generally what we're seeing across the country as far as AI in the classroom, how students are using it for work. I'm curious here on a local perspective, talking to you, what are you noticing here in central New York and at Moyne? How much is AI being used in the classroom?
So it's interesting because with everything that I read about it, people are always saying that students are just using AI for everything. And they're just, of course, using it more and more. As I interact with students at Moyne is such a relationally focused institution, and everything is sort of so much smaller that as I've had really open conversations with students about it, they aren't all using AI, at least from what they tell me, and I'm inclined to believe at least some of them. Certainly, many of them are using AI a lot, and that usage is still increasing, but there's still a bunch of students out there who see the value of not just using it all the time.
Have you noticed it's growing over the past couple of years? Because I feel like I was just kind of learning about AI at the beginning of this year. You know, I mean, I obviously had heard of it, but it seems like it's just exploding the past few months, the past year or so. Have you noticed an increase in it?
Oh, sure. So we look at the timeline of it. It was, of course, back in November of 2022 when OpenAI released ChatGPT as this really powerful AI-powered chatbot that was using the large language model to put together brand new text, and that was sort of the tipping point where suddenly stuff started to become we started to become more aware of what AI was. Since then, I think it's just been a steady increase of engagement. Even a year after that, one of my colleagues and I did a survey. We were able to survey about 350 Moyne students where we were just asking them anonymously to talk about how are they using AI and why are they using AI. And at that point, there was 30% of those respondents who said that they weren't using it at all for their academic work. We're planning on rerunning that study again this year because 2 years it's outdated information now, and we are absolutely expecting a substantial increase, and it's becoming just unavoidable, right? Like now if you're searching for something on Google, the default is a Google Gemini AI compilation response, right? So even if you don't want to use it, you're sort of being forced by the current mechanisms to keep on using it more and more.
It certainly has its advantages like that. I noticed that with the Google, I think it was earlier this year or late last year where that started popping up. And it's helpful, but it's not like the be-all, end-all, right? Sometimes you got to fact-check these things.
Yeah, and it's actually getting better and better at citing its sources. So if with Gemini, for that example, you can just go and see where did that information come from. ChatGPT does a lot better now with letting you know where the information is coming from as opposed to just pushing together an amalgamation of what it sort of thinks you want to hear, which of course is anthropomorphizing it. It's not thinking, but right. Early on, there was lots of concern, 3 years ago with AI hallucinating stuff, and it still does that, but it's doing it less and less. It's just getting better and better.
When I talked to Jennifer, she kind of said teachers are needing to embrace this kind of in the classroom in some aspect. How do you feel about that? Should teachers kind of accept that this is becoming the norm?
I don't just think that teachers should accept it. I think they should respond to it. And I think that response sometimes looks like acceptance, and certainly in some disciplines, and I have colleagues in information science technology or information systems that need to teach their students how to use AI because that's how the work is being done in the field. But I have some colleagues in the English department who are really adamant against using it and against letting the students have access to it. And I think in those sorts of situations, the response needs to be conversations with the students about it and about why the teachers feel that it's valuable or find it to not be valuable. So my push is that I think that faculty and instructors and teachers must respond to generative AI, but what that response is, I think, is going to be really specific based on the discipline, based on the class classroom environment based on the learning objectives of that particular in that particular space.
Now, you've also done some faculty development work at Moyne on AI too. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, and this goes back to that same main idea that our big push in those faculty development workshops has been to encourage the faculty to respond, that they must do something with AI. They must acknowledge its presence, they must get to know what it's capable of, and then they must talk to their students about it in some capacity. They must sort of lay out what the expectations are for AI use in their classroom and also provide justifications for why those expectations are what they are. And again, sometimes we've had faculty do, through those workshops, build really amazing assignments where they're having students use and evaluate AI production or incorporate it into the assignments in really interesting ways. But again, we've also had faculty members who have sort of doubled down on not using it, and that can absolutely be a productive and a legitimate response to AI as well.
Now, you mentioned a couple of the good things AI can do there. Are there any more good things that, like, how can AI benefit in the classroom, both teachers, students? Like, what advantages does it bring?
Sure, and this is an interesting question because the main thing that AI does that I see is it makes the work that students do more efficient. And the big question is whether or not it's valuable to make that work more efficient or not. And if you're saving time on one stage of the learning process, what are you using that time for at a different stage? So that ultimately, hopefully, students aren't just getting the work done faster so that they can scroll TikTok for longer, but rather if they're getting, for example, AI is really good at coming up with lists. It's really good at summarizing texts. And so if you're using AI to sort of do kind of those brainstorming tasks or do that summative work, does that mean that you're saving yourself for more time to do revision, right? To like think more closely or critically about how this problem or how this text is connected to a specific audience or relates to a specific context in a different way. So if something's becoming more efficient, what are we using that extra time for? And hopefully we're still using it for learning.
Have you noticed teachers are using it to formulate lessons? I mean, is it like maybe come up with lesson plans, some unique ways to teach students, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely something I'm seeing faculty use it to be able to come up with learning objectives. I personally use AI to come up with really specific models. So when I'm teaching writing and I want the students to be able to look at a particular paragraph that's doing a particular thing, before I would have to write that paragraph on my own, or I'd have to do a substantive search to be able to find exactly a paragraph that was using evidence in a really particular way, for example. And now I can put the prompt in ChatGPT and in seconds have a couple of different models that I can use that then I can talk with my students about in class. When I do that, I make sure to let my students know where this material comes from. I think it's really important to be honest with ourselves and with the students that we're working with about what our process is and where our work is coming from. So I let them know, hey, these examples were generated by generative AI, or I revised them to respond to some of the particular questions that you all have, dear students. But absolutely, we are using it, and we're using it in ways that I think is helping us to become better, or at least more efficient instructors.
I want to focus a little bit now on the writing impact of AI, because I know that that's a big focus of you and something that you've thought about. What concerns do you have about the AI impact it could have on students' writing?
Sure. I mean, big picture, and there's been a lot of stuff that's been written around this, there's the big question of, will it make writing obsolete? Generative AI is really good at developing product, and sometimes, especially in the learning environment, people see writing as nothing more than just a product, right? Just a thing that they're supposed to spit out, as opposed to what it really is in the learning context, which is a process, or a process through which people can learn. So I think that all parts of the writing process are valuable for enhancing student learning. Like, I think brainstorming is an important skill for students to be able to develop so that they can organize or be able to sort of generate new thoughts. And I think summarizing is an important skill so that they can help make sense of the world around them. So there's concern if these particular parts of the writing process are being offloaded to generative AI, does that mean that the students aren't developing those skills on their own? And it may be that may be the case, but again, if they're offloading the brainstorming or the summarizing to generative AI, does that free them up to spend more time on some parts of the writing process that haven't always gotten as much attention, like revision, for example? So again, I think paying attention to the way that students are using generative AI and why they're using it, and helping to be in conversation with them about the value of doing this work with or without the tools that the amazing, sort of the powerful algorithm have now provided us. It's really important to be having those conversations with students.
Now, what about creativity in writing? Because AI doesn't really understand human emotions, so to speak, right? So, I mean, if students are kind of using AI to come up with their writing, and it doesn't really have that human flair to it, right? Does that have an impact? That
voice, and it certainly has, and I think it does right now. I think one of the directions that we're headed towards with AI is that it's just going to get better and better. That so much of its creative work has always been, to this point, pretty derivative, not particularly sort of full of life, but I think we're seeing that change as the computer programs themselves are able to sort of do higher and higher level, math to try to figure out what the next possible word could be. I think it's getting better at the creative element of it, which I think forces us to ask really key questions about why are we having students do this work in the first place, and helping to encourage them to buy into the validity of doing things like expressing their true voice or finding their own opinion through the process of writing and the process of learning.
I remember when I was in school, you'd always go to the campus library or the high school library, and you pull out all the books and do all the research and craft everything. I was always so proud when it was done, but now I'm wondering, was my quality of writing up to par with people who use AI now? Like, do you notice a difference in quality of writing from a few years ago to now with AI being present?
What I see with AI is that AI can develop a pretty good B-level writing assignment, a B-level paper, and in some situations we can sort of say that that's good enough. But I think about what you just had referenced about sort of the sense of fulfillment or the pride that you felt by doing the work yourself, right? By actually doing the learning, and I think we need to continue to help students to have that sort of buy-in, to have that extrinsic motivation. That intrinsic motivation within themselves to see the validity of doing the work, so that they can be the one who's also doing the learning. Because again, going back to the product, sure, maybe over time the product will continue to become better and better through AI, but the product isn't what matters when it comes to the learning space. What matters is the process and the learning that gets done, and sort of the self-development or the skills or the personal capacity that can be built through the engagement with the assignment.
You've had talks with students about this, right? You've held workshops and stuff like that on the benefits of non-AI writing. Like, what was that like? What was their reactions?
So you referenced how things have changed. This semester, I do different things with AI this semester than I did last semester. Like I'm always sort of changing my strategies for how I'm talking to students about AI. This semester, I'm embracing a sense of like brutal honesty with students, that I tell them, like, look, the machine is getting more and more powerful, and it's getting to the point where there's this sort of an arms race with detectors as to if the detectors are able to identify AI or not. We also know that individuals aren't always great. Individual instructors aren't always great at identifying AI. And so I tell students, I say, you probably could use generative AI and you probably could get away with it, right? You probably could. It might take some additional work, but is that the kind of person you want to be? Like, you're choosing to come to school, you're choosing, and especially in the higher education space, like, you don't have to be here, but you decided to have some sort of, assign some sort of value to this experience. And what is it that you want from this experience, and why are you here? Because if you truly don't want to do the work, and I'm just really honest with students, I say, maybe this isn't the best place for you, right? Like, if you don't want to do the learning that is required by actually doing the work, then, like, please do some soul searching to find out what it is that you do want to do, and then go do that thing instead.
Yeah, that's a great point, because college is such a commitment. Like, you should really invest your time and think about what you're doing. But even if you use AI responsibly, there are still some skills humans need to when writing, right? I mean, there's still some stuff that AI doesn't provide. Like, what can a human do that AI can't?
Well, I mean, think, right? Like it's currently AI is not actually thinking. It's just doing math, and so that thinking again pushes us to that process. I think within especially, I mean, I teach sort of freshman level writing 101 kinds of classes, and I think there might be a turn to reframing those classes not just as writing classes but as thinking classes. So if students can see that writing is a tool for developing their capacity to think and process information, maybe there can be more buy-in, which again puts the focus not on the product. It's not about just the paper that's being generated. It's about the mental work that's going into making the thoughts on the paper clear enough for another external audience to be able to encounter and engage with those thoughts.
What about when it comes to reading? Like, is AI kind of like the modern day Cliff Notes? You know, like you get a reading assignment, and this is the way to summarize it for you.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the main ways that I see students using it. And going back to that brutal honesty that I'm trying to embrace, I show students that you can upload a PDF to generative AI or to ChatGPT in particular, and you can say, summarize this for me, and it's doing a really good job of providing that kind of summary, which again, I think pushes us to think about what's the purpose of reading in this case. And reading has different purposes at different times, right? Sometimes reading is just about gaining the information. Sometimes it's about enjoyment, right? Like there's a certain pleasure that can be existing in certain kinds of reading. And so talking to the students about what your expectations are and why you have those expectations for them, right? Like students have always skimmed through textbooks, and we're happy if they're even doing that, right? Like at least that's some sort of engagement. And so talking with students about the work that you're expecting them to do and the reasons why you want them to do that work. If you truly want them to read a thing in depth or do a deep dive into it, why is that a valuable way for them to spend their time? And sort of making the case for them, I think, is really important.
Kind of a curious way to judge this, but what's considered cheating now? Like if a teacher gets an assignment and it's like, oh, maybe this was done with AI, is that cheating? Is it not? Like where's the threshold? Is it different for every teacher, every professor? Like where do we go?
It's absolutely different for every instructor, right? Like even and in different classrooms where my colleagues are working, for some of them cheating is using AI in any capacity, and for some of them cheating is simply not acknowledging that you used AI. So it actually takes a lot of, I think, attention from the student's perspective to pay attention to how different instructors have different expectations for what constitutes cheating.
On that same topic, how hard is it to tell if someone used AI? Because like two students could enter the same thing into an AI and get two different results, right? I mean, are there red flags where you can be like, yeah, that was done by AI, or is it just too hard to tell sometimes?
It's getting increasingly harder and harder to tell, which is why I personally am utterly disinterested in trying to be the one who's controlling how students are doing their work. I really don't like to try to have to put the detective hat on and try to suss out, did this person use AI or did they not? There are some situations where the sort of roteness of AI, what it produces, can be an indicator that that's what it used, that a student used AI. But I mean, we're finding that, again, like C-level student writing where they're just kind of phoning it in might just sound a whole lot like AI. Like that might just be their voice as it is, or that might just be sort of the level of engagement that they put into a really formulaic, certain formulaic moves, nothing extraordinary, right? Like nothing exciting or unexpected, just sort of following along. And what they write might just sound like AI. And we're absolutely running into students who are being accused of using AI, and which in certain contexts, of course, is considered cheating, but then didn't use AI. So there's that additional problem as well.
When it comes to policies, how do you feel like, or maybe they do already, do schools or colleges or a majority or some set a policy at the beginning of the year or do teachers set policies? Like, how do you think that should be handled?
Sure. There's a bunch of different ways that's being handled. At Le Moyne in particular, I can speak to early on the development of a couple of different sanctioned syllabi statements so that Moyne said to its instructors, here are 3 different syllabus statements. There's one that says, in the context of this class, generative AI is always considered cheating. Don't use it at all. There's one that says, in the context of this class, for some purposes and for some assignments, the use of generative AI or for particular purposes will be allowed, and that's just going to be differentiated between the different assignments or the different projects or the different sort of functions of AI. And there's a third assignment or a third statement that says you're welcome to use generative AI in whatever way you want. Just be accountable to it. Like let me know. Make sure that you're citing your sources, even citing AI, and you're being honest to me and to each other about what you're doing. And so that's the current sort of official recommendation, is just that faculty members choose one of those 3 syllabus statements and include it, and then talk to students about it. But there's all kinds of additional talk about, is that enough? Is that too open? Moyne really values letting individual instructors make decisions that best fit the context of their class, and so that sort of flexible model, I think, fits the particular context that Moyne has.
I may show my age here, but has AI now brought us past the filling in the bubble on the Scantron? You know what I mean? Like, how do teachers judge students' abilities now? Like, is there a difference in judging their writing, their creativity, their analysis, because they have to take AI into account when they look at their work?
Sure. To the filling in the bubble in the Scantron, tests still exist, right? And that's a different way of assessing knowledge, by having somebody perform a specific task in person, sort of in front of a classroom, or like sitting in your desk where you don't have access to the computer. So tests, I don't think, are going away anytime soon. The bigger question of how is learning being assessed, again, thinking about my radical honesty approach this semester, I've tried to just be really honest and open with my students to say, I take that third syllabus statement where I say students can use generative AI in whatever ways they want. I just want them to let me know. And we do writing in all of my classes. And I at the start of the semester, tell them, look, I'm open to you using generative AI. I just want you to be in communication with me about that, about what you're using and why you're using it, so that you can be reflective about that. And if you don't let me know that you're using AI, I'm going to assume that this is your work, and I'm going to engage with it as if it was your own work, so that when I give them feedback, I'm going to assume you're accountable for these ideas. I'm going to help you to revise. I'm going to help you think through what's strong about your work and what's not strong about your work. And I tell them, I want to do this work for you. Like, I want to provide you this feedback on the stuff that you're generating. I really don't want to provide that feedback on something that the computer has totally generated, right? I actually feel that to be pretty soul-sucking, and I would much rather spend that time like playing with my 6-year-olds and building Lego or something than trying to help the machine figure out how to do something better. And so I asked my students to be honest with me. I asked them to look deep into themselves and say, again, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of values do you hold around learning? And let's sort of build a community of trust in this classroom so that we can be honest with each other about what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I'm curious, you mentioned how fast AI is improving and growing. What do you think we could see in 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Is there new technology, or are they just going to kind of improve the reliability of what we have now?
I mean, there's certainly going to improve it. I think its capacity to sort of not sound as derivative. Again, that's already been improved, and I think that will continue to advance. I truly haven't given much thought beyond of what's next beyond. I know that it's going to be more and better of the same. I assume there will also be other changes. Like, this is a disruptive technology that sort of brought a whole slew of changes with it. I imagine there'll be other disruptions that it will affect. I haven't imagined those yet, though.
It's growing so fast. I tell people, I remember when the internet became a thing. It feels like AI is doing the same thing now, right? Yeah. And people need to learn it. Like, are there places people can go to learn how to use AI, or, do you just ask AI, how do I use you? Like, what's the best way if someone's new to it, how they use AI?
This is interesting too, because we're all new to it, right? Like, this is a thing that just, again, within just the past 3 years, we've all had to learn how to be proficient in understanding what it can do or what its pitfalls are. The classroom, I think, can be a space where students are learning how to use it, are thinking about, and there's a lot of like media literacy around it, paying attention to how are they assessing information and where is that information coming from. So I think this is a great educational opportunity for us to be using the chances that we have in the classroom to be leaders, to help the students learn how to use this.
All right, final message, Matthew, for teachers, parents, students who may be struggling how to determine how to use this in the classroom. What's right, what's wrong? What's your message to them?
I would encourage them to really interrogate the reasons for using generative AI, like really be reflective about what are you doing and why are you doing, and allow it to push us as educators to get back to what matters the most in education, which of course is as I mentioned before, it's the process, right? It's what people learn. It's not just about some sort of arbitrary grade. It's not just about the final paper that's turned in. That product only mattered insofar as it was a representation of the process of what people gained through engaging with this work. So as instructors, as parents, we need to be encouraging students to embrace the learning process and be committed, intrinsically motivated to grow, as opposed to just trying to fill the boxes and meet the standards for arbitrary reasons.
All right, Matthew Flutter-Johann from Moyne College, thank you so much for joining us on our series on AI in the classroom.
Absolutely, thank you.
And remember, if you have something you want us to talk about going on in your school, you can contact me anytime, coolschools@localsyr.com.